After the loss to South Carolina, what is the path to the college football playoff for the Aggies?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. And on the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about what we want to see rest of season from Marcel Reed to have confidence in him for the future. We're going to talk about what, when it comes to this season, you got to clean up to finish strong. But we're going to start the show talking about a path to the playoff for the Aggies. So, you had a pretty clear path to the playoff, and it was beating South Carolina. Obviously, that didn't happen. So now you got to look at this as what can we do here? The magic number is 10 wins when it comes to a playoff appearance, especially for a Power 5, for an SEC team or a Power 4. And I keep forgetting we got to say that now. And obviously, you have 7 wins. You're 7-2. You have games that are very winnable against New Mexico State and Auburn. We're going to talk about the Auburn game here in a minute in the discussion of the path to the playoff. But once again, I look at this as a very beatable team, and we'll deep dive more into that and stuff like that. But, your path is there. The first college football playoff rankings came out. You had Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Miami 4, Texas 5. Penn State 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, BYU 9, Notre Dame 10, Alabama 11, Boise State 12, SMU 13. And of course, the Aggies are 14. There are many teams that could lose a football game and drop out of there. I think the Aggies being 14th in this playoff, it tells me one of two things. It tells me had they won that South Carolina game, they'd have been ranked really high in these rankings. Another thing you could look at is I guess the committee here isn't all that concerned about the loss or didn't think it was a terrible loss to South Carolina. Those are the two ways you can interpret Texas A&M being 14th, even coming off a loss in these first playoff rankings. And, looking at that, you got 2 spots to make up. You got to get into that top 12. And here's the deal. This isn't rocket science. You want a path to the college football playoff? You go 3-0 over these next 3 games. You go 3-0 over these next 3 games, you're in the college football playoff. It's simple as that. You beat Auburn, you beat New Mexico State, you beat Texas, you're going to make the playoff. Very simple, very easy to understand, not a tough concept. So, especially it'll also help you recency bias. If you beat Texas, that recency bias would be very helpful to your case. So looking at this, taking a look at this path to the playoff, that's what it tells me. It tells me you need to win those 3 games. And it's not a crazy take, but it's not going to be easy to do. Texas, no, it's a rivalry. I respect them. They're a good football team. They're a really, really good football team. And it's not even at home going to be easy for the Aggies to win that game. I believe, and some might disagree, some might yell at me because I'm saying positive things about Texas, and that's fine. I believe that Texas is the best of the teams. They're the best team you play this season, but I believe they're the best of the 4 teams you played at home that we consider to be tough teams: LSU, Missouri, and Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame and Texas are close, but I think that Texas is a really solid football team. They played a poor game against Georgia. I think if they played them again, they could beat Georgia. But it's a tough matchup. I think Georgia's better than Texas, but I think they could beat them if they played better. You have to beat Texas to make the playoff. And I think that that's doable. I think that it's doable. I think there are a lot of factors in your favor. And you have to understand rivalry games, they're always interesting. I don't care if one team is infinitely better than the other. I don't care what the situation is. Rivalry games are always interesting, and I don't believe that's going to be any different this season. Any different in this rivalry, which is being renewed, thanks to Texas joining the SEC. I don't think you're going to see this be any different than other rivalries. It's going to be a close game. Knowing it's the first time we've seen this game since Texas A&M joined the SEC, it's going to be special. Once again, this is a rivalry people grew up on. It was one of the better rivalries in college sports. And Texas A&M's move to the SEC took away this rivalry, but it's back. And it's going to be great. It's going to be one of the better rivalries in the sport. So, yeah, I'm really fired up for this game in general. But, I mean, this is a game. If Texas A&M wins this game, and they obviously take care of business against Auburn and Mexico State, they're going to the playoff. That's just the reality. And it's going to be really – now, with the loss to South Carolina, where are they in the playoff? I don't think they're going to be in the top 5. I think they'd be like 9, 10, 11, or 12, with the 10-2 record. But looking at that, it's going to be really it would be hard to keep a 10-2 team that just came off a win against what would be a top 5 Texas team. It's going to be tough to keep that team out of there. So the path to the playoff is beating Texas and Auburn. Now, Texas is a game, we know the challenge is there. Auburn is a game to me. I think the last time that we saw a Texas A&M go down to Auburn, we saw that weird game where it was Cadillac Williams was the interim, and they got rid of their old coach, and they were felt revived at Auburn. I don't think the vibes are that high right now. Now, I believe Auburn has a solid fan base. I believe they're going to have turnout at that game. I'm not saying there's going to be no one there, but I just don't think the vibes are very high right now with Auburn. And I, on top of that, think that they're a very, very bad football team. But what's funny is I think they're a very good, bad football team. I still do believe Auburn's quarterback play. I mean, if you look at Auburn's season to this point, Auburn has been in a lot of football games that they lost and potentially should have won. I mean, you look back, they lose to Cal, they turn the ball over 1 million times. They lose to Arkansas, they turn the ball over 1 million times. They lose to Oklahoma, they should have won that game. They lose to Missouri, they should have won that game. Vandy, it never really felt like they, it felt like Vandy won that game, pretty fair. Point is, though, their 5 losses, they were in these games. I mean, not saying these are the best teams in the world, Arkansas and Oklahoma. I mean, these aren't Missouri on the road, they hung around, but, Cook was out most of that game. Not saying this is the best. Those are the best. You're not trying to give them any moral victories. What I'm saying is a few things go their way, and this is a very different looking game. So I don't think Auburn's very good, but I think that if you play bad, they can beat you. I do. They're not on South Carolina's level, obviously, but I also think that they're better than Mississippi State, and some might disagree with that. And that's fine. But I think that this team is better than Mississippi State, and I think you got to go in prepared for this football game. You have to go in and play your best football. I mean, all it takes is that one game where Thorne puts it together, and doesn't turn the ball over, and they win. They can win a football game. I mean, they've got a solid defense. It's not the best ever. I mean, they've got a top, I'd say, 30 defense in college football. So they've got an okay defense. Their offense is the issue, but their offense moves the ball. The issue is turnovers. So if they don't turn the ball over, they can be a hard team to beat. So what I'm saying is, yes, Texas now becomes a priority. Texas now becomes the game that we're all looking at. We're all saying, okay, this is going to be a tough one. Texas is now that game. There's no question that that's the reality here. But at the same time, I don't think we should overlook this Auburn game. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Auburn's good. Don't think they're good, but I think they're better than people assume. I mean, y'all, I watch every SEC game. I mean, it's pretty much what I do for a living. And I'm just telling you, if I had to pick a team that I would say is better than they appear, I would say it's that Auburn team when it comes to how bad people think they are. They're bad, But if they play well, they can win football games. That's just the reality. So my point in this is you can't just walk there. You can't walk into Jordan-Hare Stadium and think think it's just going to be 56-0. You got to go in and play well. You got to go in and play well, or you could lose that game. If you take care of business there and against New Mexico State, it then becomes Texas A&M, Aggies win, they're in the playoff. Very simple. So that is the path. You got to finish strong, and you got to find a way to win football games without your star running back. We're going to talk about some things the Aggies need to clean up for the rest of the season coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Hims. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing you get ready to go and stay ready to go whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with the healthcare provider. He will determine if appropriate restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Also want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. So now looking at what Texas A&M can clean up. And yeah, there's a few things. There are a few things without question that this team can clean up between now and the rest of the season. And looking at this, one of those things to me, the first one, and we've seen it really bad in the 2 losses especially, but there's been times where that issue shows up in other games. And that is missing tackles. You cannot miss tackles. It's just a losing recipe. When you miss tackles, you are just, you're giving them extra yards. You are giving them, because I look at it like this. If you missed a tackle, it's kind of like they say, if the ball hits your hand, you should have caught it. You know what I mean? If you're able to touch them, you should be able to tackle them. And if you miss tackles, you are just giving them extra yards. Extra yards, it's a game of inches. Extra yards make a difference. If, on a 2nd and 7, you miss a tackle in the backfield and they pick up 5 yards, now you got 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 8, that stuff matters. Missing tackles can be the difference in wins and losses. I sound like Scott Hansen with the witching hour. And, it can be the difference between winning a football game and losing a football game. And once again, if you want to look at trends, if you want to take a look at trends here, so far this season, the Aggies lose when they miss tackles. I think it was something like 44 missed tackles. I think it was like 19 and 25. Is that right? 39. Yeah, I think it was 44 missed tackles between the losses to Notre Dame and South Carolina. If you miss tackles, you lose football games. It's just the bottom line. You just can't do it. The thing about it is, and this team last year, Texas A&M had issues last year wrapping up. I'm a little frustrated by it. It happens. But once again, that's why I talk about it's a recipe to a loss. If you miss tackles, you lose football games. That's just what happens. Why it's the reason that when the Aggies have missed tackles, they've lost games. That's just what happens. So knowing that is the case, looking at this, is just something you got to clean up. It's something you've got to clean up over the next few weeks. If you miss tackles against Auburn in Texas, you'll definitely lose to Texas. You could potentially lose to Auburn. So you have got to clean up the missed tackles. It's a big deal. It's something, once again, that's something you'll lose. You will lose if you make the playoff, something you will then lose if you are missing tackles in the college football playoff, because that's when teams are playing their best football. You're going to lose that way. So missed tackles is something this team's got to clean up. And, what that means is get to your spots, wrap up. Don't, the other thing I'll say too is don't give my favorite play in football, and it's very simple. When you see a player catch like one of those, like a little tight end, where they just kind of, they run a little quick out off the line of scrimmage and they're catching the ball, at the line of scrimmage, maybe a yard in front of it. And then you look and there's a corner or a safety or whoever the would-be tackler is. And they're standing there and they're like 6 yards away from them. My favorite play in football is when the defender runs straight through the receiver, tight end, whoever, runs straight through their chest. That is my favorite play in football, because you're not giving them an opportunity to make you miss. And that's I'm not saying that's been an issue for the Aggies. I'm saying that's what you need to do when it comes to tackling. You need to go, wreak havoc. Go get them. Don't let them come to you. You go get them. Run through their face. And that is, it's my favorite play in football. And it's just, it's good tackling. It's what it is. So you need to see Texas A&M clean up the tackling. The other thing is the penalties. Right now, Texas A&M is 120th in college football when it comes to penalties. It's not good. 69 penalties on the season for 619 penalty yards. Looking at it, that's just not a good number. You've got to be a disciplined football team. And what's funny is in some football game, there's penalties that are discipline-based, knowledge-based, and then just, pass interferences happen. Holdings happen. And I'm not too terribly upset with how many penalties of the tomfoolery aspect Texas A&M's had this year. But the point is, at the end of the day, it's like the turnover battle, all of these. Not all turnovers are crazy ugly. The ball, you know what I mean? Like or maybe a ball hits receiver on the hands. Like I'm saying, like not crazy ugly for the quarterback. Like but there's still turnovers. Maybe, a pass interference. It's still a pass interference. So you need to clean that up. I'm not saying, obviously I'm saying it's not like you punch somebody after the play or that's happened in the ton. You can't have that stuff happen for sure, but there's going to be penalties that come. It's just football, but you would love to start to diminish some of those and have less of those. So, that is something this team's just flat out got to clean up over the next few weeks. Penalties and missed tackles. If you clean those two things up, I think Texas A&M wins their next 3 games and makes the playoff. I think it's that simple. You have got to be more disciplined when it comes to penalties, and you have got to wrap up and tackle. If this team can fix those two things, it will go a long way to helping them finish the year out on a 3-0 run and making the playoff. What we want to see from Marcel Reed the rest of the year and what that might mean for his future coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. The best how to use steps. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Also, want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the only place anyone should ever be purchasing tickets to an event. I talk about it all the time. I love the Game Time app. Every time I'm buying tickets to an event of any kind, I'm doing it on the Game Time app. It's easy to use. I love all the features. I love the prices. Every aspect of the Game Time app I love. I recommend it to everybody whenever they're buying tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LockedOnCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Marcel Reed, like we said, it seems like he's your guy for the rest of the year. And Marcel Reed, so we're not really talking we're talking more big picture future here for Marcel Reed. And that is, what would we want to see the rest of this season that would give us a ton of confidence moving forward when it comes to Marcel Reed and the type of player he is? And to me, I think it's just the passing accuracy. We know who Marcel Reed is when it comes to the player, or in the run game. We know who he is as a runner. The question is, who can he be as a passer? I thought he made some good throws against South Carolina. I thought he made some bad throws against South Carolina. I thought that there's, a lot that Marcel Reed could improve on. I think he's a great player with a high upside. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for him. But it's going to be the passing. The passing is what, we know who he is as a runner. He sees the holes well. I think he uses his blocks. I think he's a smart runner. The question becomes, will he be able to dial in as a passer? Because Texas A&M, don't forget, you've got a great quarterback coming in this year's class, and you got a great quarterback coming in next year's class. You are stacked at the position. You are going to be in a really good spot at quarterback for a really, really long time. So what that tells me is, Marcel Reed's got to win this job. He's obviously a sophomore. He's got more eligibility left in him. He's got more time to play left in him. But this isn't going to be the easiest job in the world to win. There's going to be some really solid competition in the future. So Marcel Reed's got to prove he's the guy, and the way he's going to do that is with his arm. And to me, it's obviously not it's an accuracy issue. He's got arm strength. He's got arm talent. It's the accuracy issue. He's got to be more accurate throwing the football. It's kind of like the Joe Milton. I don't care how far you can throw a football. That's really cool. It's like Uncle Rico and Napoleon Dynamite. I used to be able to throw a football a quarter mile. Don't care. If you can throw a football a quarter mile, great. If you can't aim, to me, it's like the pitcher who throws 99 but you're throwing it literally 40 miles off the coast on the ocean and you couldn't hit the ocean. That is what, you don't want to be that type of quarterback. And I don't quite think that Marcel Reed's that guy, because I don't think he quite has that type of arm strength, but he's got arm strength. He's got arm talent. He's just got to dial in the accuracy of himself as a passer. And you got to remember, he has not played a ton of career games. There is a lot left for him to figure out. There's a lot left for Marcel Reed to dial in as a passer. And I think if he does dial in as a passer and he does get more accurate, he could be a Heisman candidate. That's how good he is if he can get more accurate with his legs. he can be one of those. We see him succeed all the time. The dual threat quarterbacks that can throw and that can run. If he can really dial in the passing on top of what he is as a runner, he could be a dangerous player. So I'm really fired up to see what this looks like for Marcel Reed and the type of player that he ends up being. But I do believe he's the quarterback of the future for this program. I'm fully bought into that. I think that like I said, he hasn't played a ton of career games. He has opportunities to develop into a better passer. And I think when he does that, it's going to be really, really special. And if he gets more dialed in as a passer, he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football in the future, I think. And he could turn himself into an NFL prospect. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really, really appreciate it. Hope everyone is having a great Wednesday so far. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, that helps the show a ton. I'd appreciate that. If you're listening on a podcast platform, leave 5 stars and like and subscribe there as well. Appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your day today, and we will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.